Okay, Virginia and North Carolina. We get down to the matchup here, another segment of the Cavalier Insider Pregame Show. Andrew Anspacher and Jerry Ratcliffe, obviously the Who's coming in, trying to break a 6-game skid. Virginia on a losing streak of at least 6 games in back-to-back seasons for the first time since the mid-'70s. North Carolina coming in at 3-5 has won its last 2 games. They're starting off 1-5, and Carolina is a team that, last year, first year under Larry Fedora, I think overachieved a little bit. And this year, you can argue they've underachieved at this point.
Yeah, and last year he was playing a lot with Butch Davis's players, and there was a lot of talent there. And this year they've had, I think they really missed some of those offensive linemen that went to the NFL and went on. Some really good players. And, of course, they lost Gio, who I think was one of the better backs we've seen in the ACC in a while. And nobody has really jumped up and taken his place. In fact, I think Marquise Williams, their new quarterback, not new, he's been sharing the job. I think he's usually their leading rusher. And, when your quarterback's your leading rusher and you're not really running a true option, I'm not sure that's a good thing.
Yeah.
But I think they have underachieved a little bit. I think I've had my power rankings. I've had them way up there all season. I think I had at one time they were the best 1-5 team in the country, and they were. And I think now they're starting to win and looking pretty good. Yeah,
you look at their losses. I mean, you start off this season. They opened the college football season against South Carolina on that Thursday night on ESPN. Fall 27-10. Okay, respectable. Go out, beat Middle Tennessee, but then losses by 8 to Georgia Tech. Got blown out by East Carolina. Played tough in Blacksburg, lose by 10, and then the Miami game. That what was the name of that Black something Thursday?
Blackout Thursday.
Zero Dark Thursday. That's what it was in Chapel Hill. A lot of hype going into that. They really deserved to win that game. And
They should have won that game.
Miami kind of stole it late, and to keep the Hurricanes' season at undefeated at that time. Obviously, Florida State had something to say about that last week. But I think that could be right. At the time, maybe the best 1-5 team in the country, if that's such an honor. But with all that being said, it means they got enough talent here to make a run late. Look at their last part of their schedule. Virginia, go to Pitt, home against Old Dominion, then close against Duke, and it's in Chapel Hill. So still a chance for them to go to a bowl game for the Tar Heels and Larry Fedora. And this particular game on Saturday will be defined by who's not there. First for Carolina, you mentioned a little bit with Marquise Williams. Bryn Renner, who is, I think, third all-time in 4 major statistical categories in North Carolina history in terms of passing yards, I think touchdowns, completions, attempts. His career is over at North Carolina after a shoulder injury suffered last week against NC State. So that brings in Marquise Williams, who is not a stranger to the spotlight. He actually started and played the game in Blacksburg, did okay against Bud Foster's defense. So for John Tenuta, this is the second time Virginia gets a backup quarterback. First time didn't do so great against Caleb Rowe in place of C.J. Brown up at Maryland. How can they do this week?
I think Tenuta's going to have to do to Carolina this week what other teams have been doing to Virginia, and I think they're going to have to load the box up on Marquise Williams, put a shadow on him, so if he does take off with the ball, there's somebody there to get him, and force him to throw, force him to beat them with his arm, and I'm not so sure he can do that. Carolina could win in other ways, but I don't think you let Marquise Williams beat you with his feet.
Yeah, Marquise Williams on the year has carried 50 times for 201 yards. He's also thrown 3 touchdowns to 3 interceptions to 6 touchdowns. Not exactly prolific numbers like Bryn Renner has, so it'll be certainly a big spotlight for him on Saturday. On the flip side, he'll be going against a depleted Virginia defense that has been depleted for the better part of the last month. On Monday, Mike London gave the news that it will be without now Demetrius Nicholson for the rest of the season with a turf toe. We talked about it in an earlier segment, the advantage that Clemson took in Tim Harris and putting Sammy Watkins against him. Now, North Carolina does not have a Sammy Watkins type. It has Eric Ebron as its best offensive player. He's a tight end, but can still maybe play out wide. North Carolina, you talked about Virginia might load that box. but that's going to have to put a lot of faith in that Virginia secondary, which is banged up without Nicholson, without Kennedy.
That's true, and it becomes a delicate thing about when to blitz and when not to blitz, because if you blitz, you're giving up single coverage on those guys, and usually it's a linebacker that's going to be hanging with Ebron. I don't know if they have a guy that can hang with him or not. He's to me, he seems like another Heath Miller, one of those type tight ends who can really make a difference. But there's nowhere to hide a corner really, and they've got to find some way to overcome that. I don't know exactly what you do, but I'm sure that since Clemson that they've been submerged in the meeting rooms trying to figure out some way to counter that because they know it's coming.
Right, and don't forget about Quinshot Davis, North Carolina's best receiver. Virginia fans know about him, a record 16 catches last year in Charlottesville. So certainly Virginia's secondary, Virginia's defense, certainly still with its hands full, despite North Carolina being without Bryn Renner. That will do it for our matchup breakdown of this one. In another segment, we will look ahead and give a score prediction, Virginia and North Carolina.